Chapter 1. After the third week of a one-week cruise, the sea had lost its sparkle. I stood atop the mast, feet braced on the crossbar. The Idia wasn't the largest ship afloat, and, sailing alone in the midst of a watery desert, she seemed even smaller. The mast transcribed circles with the motion of the sea below me. As I spun slowly, I surveyed empty sky and empty sea. From time to time I caught sight of the crowded deck. The crew, muttering, clutched staves, knives, and axes. Some few clutched their heads, taking no further interest in me. Considering that the water ration had been cut the week before so that there was no more for washing, I was just as glad to be up where the air was fresh, even if they hadn't been trying to kill me. By the second week of our one-week cruise, their camaraderie had begun to fracture. One or two had determined that the voyage had somehow incurred the wrath of some sea spirit or other, and in time-honored fashion, they looked about for a scapegoat. As usual, they'd picked on the only stranger on board, me. When the water ration had been cut the first time, they'd found ears willing to listen to their theory. Today, with their captain face down drunk on the deck, the knives had come out. It was climb or swim. I was secure enough for the moment, though I couldn't be sure that they were sane enough to refrain from chopping down the mast. "Come down, Thracian." The first mate, Nacrolos, had joined the crew rather than be tossed overboard himself. A burly-chested man, he had a voice like the roaring of a lion, easily heard over winds and storms. "You should see this view," I called back. "We won't hurt you if you come down." True that. Nobody wanted to anger a sea spirit or god further by spilling blood on the deck. They'd agreed that the best thing to do was to throw me overboard and leave my fate in the hands of the Moire sisters. Those three alone knew whether my threat of life foretold my death on this day or another. If I drowned, my blood would not be on the crew's hands, as it was evidently my lot in life since before my birth. I had objected for several reasons. Not least among them was that drowning was no death for a fighting man. The sun was a blurred white dot in the height of a pale sky. The sea dazzled with 1,000 glittering shards until eye and mind alike were wearied. But beyond all that, I thought I glimpsed something else. I gripped the mast tight between my knees, to bring up a hand to shade my eyes, straining to bring what I saw into focus. "You can't stay up there forever," Nacrolos said, adding to the others, "Thirst'll bring him down soon enough." "I'm serious," I shouted back. "You should see the view. Send somebody up here." After a certain amount of bickering and shoving, Nacrolos himself started up, climbing like a monkey or a sailor bred to the sea. Certainly better than I could do. Clinging to the mast, braced against me for balance, he snarled, "What game are you playing, Thracian?" He wasn't as tall as me, so at first he couldn't see it. Then I got a hold of his broad leather belt and hoisted him up, raising him with one arm above my head. He gasped, scratching and beating at my hand like a fool. The crew below cried out, thinking I meant to dash him down. Then I felt the start he gave right through his belly as his wildly rolling eye caught sight of what had brought him up here to witness. A thing that haunted the nightmares of sailors since the dawn of time. "Do you see it? Do you?" "By the mother of the gods!" "Gods or not, that's the mother of all whirlpools," I said, lowering him till I could look him in the eyes. He'd gone green under his walnut-colored tan. "And we've been riding the rim for days, I'd wager." "Aye, what's to be done?" "We start by not throwing me to the waves." "Of course not," he said, mindful perhaps that I had plenty of strength left. "Let's call that a joke, eh?" "Let's call it a bloody stupid idea. The only thing keeping us riding the edge of this whirlpool is that somehow, by the luck of heaven, our weight is neither too much nor too little. Throwing a weight like me overboard would change that by enough, and then you'd really know what a curse is." Nacrolos wasn't a fool when his thoughts weren't clouded by fear of the unknown. As we climbed down, he was already planning our escape. He thrust a meaty fist into the jaw of the first crewman who charged at me. Even as the poor fellow went down like a felled ox, Nacrolos shouted orders.